Finished up day 8 of training camp. It was a good day for CJ Stroud. He connected deep with Nico Collins. Davis Mills had a nice connection himself to Tank Dell. But CJ Stroud took all of his reps with the ones. Does that mean anything? I'm going to guess that there's a good chance tomorrow Davis Mills will get all the reps with the one. They still seem to be sticking to this competition storyline, and I'm all for that for now. But I thought it'd be good at this point during camp to take a look at how CJ Stroud has done compared to his scouting report. My God, look at those glorious lawn conquering machines. So I'm gonna finish this video up back at the studio because it is hot as balls out here. Like gorilla balls, like rhinoceros balls, like the balls of a chupacabra. Okay, so let's start off with the strengths. Number one, the ball placement / accuracy / touch on the deep balls. We have seen all that. I think on the deep balls, we've seen him place the ball gently down between receivers and the sideline, just out of reach of defensive backs. We've seen examples of that. I think that's gotten more consistent through the last week and a half. I think when it comes to throws across the middle, that's something that has gotten better as CJ's gotten more confident. And it actually also comes ironically as he's thrown a couple of picks over the middle. I think he's starting to be comfortable taking chances and starting to figure out, okay, what's the envelope here? What can I do? What can't I do? And then the third part of that, and this is something that Patrick Mahomes does really well that I think is criminally underrated, on the short passes, on the screens, out to the flats, angle routes with your running backs. He puts the ball out in front of those guys and puts them in position to keep in stride, which for the guys who aren't the true, genuine receivers, running backs especially, but also tight ends, putting the ball on their body and doing it in time and well placed is huge. And I think CJ's done a really good job with that. So that is as advertised with CJ Stroud. Number two, tapes show ability to get through progressions, to work through your progressions, to know who's open versus various coverages, all those things. I think CJ's certainly and definitely shown progression in the progressions over the course of the week and a half. And I don't even necessarily mean that in any more definable way than he looks much more comfortable. I think on those first few days of practice, maybe really for the first week until these past several days, CJ looked like he was thinking about a lot of things, and it looked more mechanical and less fluid than you're used to seeing, which is to be expected. And I'm guessing what almost every NFL quarterback looks like at first. He's gotten very comfortable, and there hasn't been panic at any point. I think sometimes when people feel like he's holding onto the ball too long, there are instances where he is just waiting for the deep routes to clear. And then he shows that he knows where to check the ball down to, which would go with strength number three. This is a Lance Zierlein one as well, because I actually didn't see this a lot, but I'm glad that Lance picked up on it. He said, CJ showed maturity as a game manager at times during the 2022 season. I think we've seen evidence of him being very calm, cool, collected, and poised in the game situation drills that the Texans do. On a couple of different 2-minute drills, he's done a really nice job moving the ball, handling the offense without mishap. There have been some growing pains and some ugly periods with lots of penalties. Don't get me wrong, but he's looked very comfortable out there. So when it comes to making the appropriate decision based on the clock and everything else, all reports is that CJ is studious as hell, and I think is going to put a lot of time and effort into that side of the game. So far, so good with those positives. I think we've seen evidence of all of those things. When it comes to the weaknesses in the scouting report, I will say that I think these are accurate concerns. So I'm not going to sit here and lambaste these guys if they end up being wrong. I think these are concerns that CJ is going to be addressing or has addressed already, and maybe has made some progress. We'll really start to find out when the pads come on, when full contact tackle football starts. But weaknesses: reacts poorly to pass rush. And this isn't just in the same way that, hey, every quarterback isn't as good under pressure as he is when he's in a clean pocket. It's that CJ is below average compared to other quarterbacks when it comes to handling a pass rush. There's two things about that. One is I am willing to wait and see and accept as an explanation that CJ would hold on to the ball for a long time because he had multiple receivers who are going to get drafted in the first round, and he just expected one of them to come open. And because he trusted his offensive line as well, he was willing to hang in there and take a lot of pressure and abuse, and perhaps wait one beat too long. So I'm willing to accept that, especially because he has shown evidence of evasiveness, especially in the Georgia game, but some before that as well. I think there's too broad a stroke being painted about how he played football before the Georgia game. Criticism number two, lack of mobility / creativity. And every scout that wrote something like that also acknowledged that in the Georgia game, CJ was very good. I think that what I've been pleased by is that in practice, when he does run, it's for the most part been the appropriate times to run. It's when there is wide open green grass in front of him, largely because the coverage is all downfield, and he takes those opportunities like he should. And I've been pretty good with his judgment on that so far. There have also been times where he has extended plays where he scrambled to the sideline. He's done some really nice things throwing on the run. And I think it's important to realize that it was a conscious decision of his, based on the advice of Michael Vick and others, that he be sure he established that he was a throwing quarterback. And he was not a guy who's a run first quarterback. And I think that's the appropriate strategy. And I think it's important for quarterbacks to show that. It's not as important as it used to be. So regardless, though, hopefully what it does produce is a guy who can do it all in the old school quarterback way, from the pocket, dissecting people with his arm, but who's also very capable and willing to run. And I've seen evidence of that so far. We'll see when the tackle football begins, but we've seen evidence. And number three, criticism in scouting reports. This is Lance Zierlein's as well, and I think it was a good point to make, and I think it's something that we're seeing CJ working through. Lance said he needs to play with better recognition and respect for safeties. So what does that mean? I think at times it means feeling like you can squeeze a football in between a corner and a safety more aggressively than you should. Early in practice with the Texans, CJ was being very careful and very cognizant of the fact that Jimmy Ward and Jalen Petrie were coming like demons from hell, flying up and closing these windows probably much faster than CJ had typically seen. CJ's been dealing with learning that part of it. I think he's gotten more comfortable and he's testing the boundaries. But what he discovered this week a couple of times is that NFL linebackers, whether it's Blake Cashman or Denzel Perryman, are pretty damn athletic, and they continue to drop and get their depth in a much more disciplined way in general than a lot of college linebackers do. So those windows between the linebackers and the safeties, those windows compress quickly too. It's not just these horizontal windows on crossing routes. Everything closes quickly, and that's what CJ's learning. And I think it's a fair concern to have in terms of weaknesses on a scouting report. I'm encouraged that he's working on it, and I think he's taking very seriously this transition. So there we have it. I think so far that the strengths were appropriately listed as strengths. He's shown evidence of ball placement, arm strength, ability and maturity, all those things. But as far as the criticisms, the reacts poorly to pass rush, lack of mobility and creativity, needs to play with better recognition and respect for safeties. I think I've seen evidence that he's working on all of those. Until we play tackle football, we won't know for sure how effective it's been. But just even in one respect, when it comes to when plays break down and how do you react to the pass rush, he's not bailing out the back of the pocket. He's not doing spin moves that he shouldn't be doing. I think he's made a conscious effort to stamp out some of those things from his game. So that's good to see. I'm Seth Payne. I played in the NFL for 10 years. I cover the Houston Texans here in Houston now. Please like and subscribe if you like Texans content, NFL content. I've got it here for you. Only been doing YouTube a few months, and I'm absolutely loving it. So please subscribe.